My name is Ethan. I work at the headquarters of a certain food manufacturing company. Having graduated from a fairly decent liberal arts college close to home, I got a job at this company, and my corporate life was going pretty well. My seniors were all capable individuals, and I always thought I had to learn from them as I worked hard every day. Especially the director, who is incredibly good at his job to the point where I wonder when he ever eats, pushing himself to handle an unbelievable amount of work daily. Even when we're on business trips, while we enjoy a bit of freedom along with local food and the scenery of the town, it seems like the boss heads straight to the designated hotel and locks himself in his room to work. And when he comes back, the amount of work he's done always blows everyone away. That's what a senior who once went on a business trip with the director told me. Hearing that story, I was terrified, realizing that competent people are indeed different. However, I was also somewhat aware that I was considered a promising hope among my colleagues. My seniors say I'm the best at negotiating, and above all, my performance in other tasks is well regarded. My presentations might not feature the most intellectually sounding text, but they're always praised for being easy to understand by anyone, thanks to the way I write and the layout of graphs and text. I've also always been commended for my accuracy in document preparation and calculations. That's how I worked hard, even though I was just an ordinary person. However, my efforts still seem to fall short against those who truly have talent. As I've observed Director Johnson, it becomes clear that people with ability usually have the capacity for effort as well. Becoming a director for a reason, his performance at work has always been outstanding among his peers. As mentioned before, by cutting down on leisure and breaks to dedicate himself to work, no one could match him in job performance anymore. It felt like he was completely dominating the top spot within a company. We were all overwhelmed by Director Johnson's style of pushing himself too hard, and eventually, nobody could point out even the small mistakes in his documents. That's because Director Johnson, loving to lecture and corner us under the guise of his workload, was a person to be wary of. And if you dared to point out a mistake of someone who loves picking on others like the director, it was clear you'd be beaten down several times over. So, we kept quiet, subtly corrected his mistakes, and submitted the documents without causing any issues, never imagining that our handling would lead to such a situation. Yet, while we navigated to not upset the director, of course, the bad rumors about him were circulating among the employees and naturally reached the higher-ups' ears. Because there were indeed employees who expressed their dissatisfaction with the director's behavior during personal interviews, given the director was not around to hear it. But even hearing such facts, the higher-ups just made troubled faces and said, "We understand. That's a serious issue. We'll talk to him and sort it out," and that was it. And so, the director was never cautioned, and the same routine continued. It was a repeated cycle. As a result, the director's attitude never improved. Our opinions were disregarded, and we had no choice but to be at the director's mercy. With a desire to stop the director's misconduct, I continued to work harder than anyone else. I may not catch up to the director in terms of speed, but I work as fast as possible without making mistakes. I thought that by doing so, someday the trust in me could surpass the trust in the director's work performance. Maybe then, I could change our current environment, where we work in apprehension of the director's actions. With that in mind, I dedicated myself to my job every day. As hoped, with each passing year, I gradually gained the trust of those around me, and at that time, I was being entrusted with tasks related to contracts and shareholder affairs. Before that, I was bombarded with tasks like copying, answering phones, creating documents, and sometimes sent far away for site inspections, feeling very much like a junior staff member. That's why I started to find a lot of satisfaction in my work at that time. Continuing to receive good evaluations made my desire to achieve more, to earn more, grow stronger, and I threw myself into my work even more fiercely. Among my peers, I was the one who could firstly to be involved in such tasks. So, at that time, I began to harbor a faint hope, wondering, maybe I could become a section chief. "You're definitely getting special attention from the seniors," a colleague said to me. "Right. You're the only one quickly entrusted with important tasks. Though, considering your usual hard work, that's probably to be expected. But man, I envy you. I don't have the guts to push myself that hard. Hearing this from colleagues, I was being praised as a potential executive candidate or a section chief might not be far off. So I blushed and modestly replied, "Nat, I'm just a regular guy working hard. I'm nowhere near reaching the seniors level. It's impossible." But deep down, I wasn't entirely displeased with the idea and had actually become quite taken with it. Little did I know, a certain person was watching my pleased expression from the shadows. One day, when I arrived at the office, it was buzzing and I saw seniors hurriedly checking something with the director. The office was filled with an ominous air. Given the seniors' track record of precise work, such a tense atmosphere should not have occurred unless a grave mistake had been made. Something that hadn't happened except when people who had left previously made terrible errors. But observing the seniors, it was clear that something bad had indeed happened. Had a major problem arisen? Trying to grasp the situation and looking around, a senior asked me in a panicked voice, "Hey, Ethan, did you create the document for the deal with Company A?" with an incredibly anxious tone. However, I had no recollection of making that document. The reason being, this negotiation with the company was so crucial it could be said to affect our company's fate. Initially, there was a suggestion that either this senior or I, who had started to receive high praise for my accuracy at work among my peers, might take it on. But, due to the document's critical importance, it was supposed to be created by the director. It seemed the senior had forgotten that fact amid all the chaos and confusion. Quickly realizing the mistake, he made an "ah" face and said, "My bad. That document," and then looked towards the director. Noticing his gaze, the director, with eyes narrowed in anger, stormed over to us with great speed. "Hey, Ethan, I entrusted you with that crucial document because it was you, and what's with that mistake?" "What?" Shocked by the unexpected accusation, I instinctively widened my eyes and shouted out loud, "What are you talking about, Director Johnson? You repeatedly said that document was so crucial you'd do it yourself." When I immediately retorted with all my might, Director Johnson's face became even more livid as he pressed, "What the heck are you saying? You didn't make that document. That's impossible." "No, that's not it. You said yourself that it couldn't be left to me, didn't you?" As I said this and looked around at everyone, those who knew began to nod hesitantly. Then, Director Johnson got even angrier, turning red with fury. "What? I would never say such a thing. Even if I did, I had eventually decided to entrust it to you and given you the data from similar cases I had worked on in the past. I had high hopes for you, thinking of entrusting you with the key part of this negotiation. And now, to make such an unbelievable mistake and have the audacity not to apologize. You are truly the worst kind of person. Director Johnson, how could he be so good at making things up that didn't happen as like this?" His far-fetched explanations caused a stir among the onlookers. However, most of them were exchanging glances, wondering if it was safe to speak up, knowing it would only add fuel to the fire if the director noticed. Misfortunes tend to pile up. Since the work was primarily between me and Director Johnson, no one else knew the details. However, because the director had been disparaging my reliability, saying I couldn't be trusted and that he would handle the Company A documents himself, a few people around were aware of this. But no one could say anything in the face of Director Johnson's fierce demeanor. And such attitudes among everyone were partly because Director Johnson was in cahoots with the president, who notoriously favored his pet employees. However, a senior who knew about Director Johnson always pinning his minor mistakes on us decided this couldn't go on. Up until now, for small mistakes, he would quietly ensure reports to the president and others stated it wasn't me, to keep Director Johnson from blowing up, which the president and others reluctantly accepted. But this mistake was so grave it could potentially ruin the career of whoever was blamed for it. That's probably why the senior wanted to be certain before reporting it higher up. With a calm voice, the senior asked Director Johnson, "Really? You assigned it to Ethan? Are you absolutely sure? You've always been too busy, and you never wanted to work with Ethan. So did you really entrust him with such an important document?" "I'm having doubts myself." That seemed to ignite Director Johnson's fury even more. What? You doubt me too? Just because I wasn't close with him doesn't mean I'd bring that into work. How little do you think of me?" With that, Director Johnson began to scream incoherently, causing a commotion. Seeing this, the other seniors felt a sense of doom. We knowing full well no one could stop him now, so we all just tensed up and waited for his anger to subside. 2 hours later, Director Johnson went straight to the president's office and, as if it was the most natural thing, lied that I was the one who prepared the document. Understanding the situation, the president was, of course, furious. He marched out of his office and stood imposingly in front of me. I had hoped the president might listen to my side of the story, but my faint hope was quickly shattered. "So, you're Ethan, huh?" "Yes. I've heard from Director Johnson. You've made a terrible mistake this time." Though I couldn't believe it, I was momentarily paralyzed. The president had no intention of listening to me. Instead, he took Director Johnson's word for it without checking with anyone else and trusted him completely. I hastily said, What? President, this is a misunderstanding." But the president wouldn't listen at all. Instead, in a cold tone, he said, "I'm sorry, but your mistakes have been reported over and over again. The seniors have been covering for you, blaming Director Johnson, as I always received post hoc reports from him. I thought it was forgivable for a newcomer, but it seems you haven't improved at all, which made us wonder. I've heard you focus too much on negotiations and important presentations, neglecting these routine tasks." Hearing this from Director Johnson, I had an idea of your character. Now, with this important deal also messed up like this, there's no defending you. I'm sorry, but you'll have to leave. The office buzzed with disbelief at such a declaration. However, it was well known that the president favored those he liked, and Director Johnson, who was good at currying favor, was in the most advantageous position in the company. That's why I knew that if there was trouble with the director, the president would always react this way. But I never expected Director Johnson to make such a mistake. Nor did I imagine that after being blamed, the president would fully believe it. After protesting several times that I have a wife and kids and pleading not to be fired, I ended up being demoted to a rundown factory in the countryside. Sigh. But really, the president didn't even try to listen to my side of the story. Just because Director Johnson is good at ingratiating himself with people, why do I have to suffer like this? It's unbelievable. I was on the fast track on promoting. I could have given my wife and daughters a better life. With these thoughts, I trudged home. I was supposed to be able to buy a house soon. What should I say to my daughter Mariah? "I'll buy you a big house with a spacious room for you and a huge slide and jungle gym if I get promoted." I want to go back to the past and tell my overconfident self not to say such things before anything was certain. What should I say to my wife Emma? Thinking this, I took much longer than usual to walk home, eventually finding myself standing in front of the door, lit by the porch light. "I'm home." "Welcome back, Dad." Emma came running as usual with her light footsteps. "Daddy, welcome back." And Mariah jumping into my arms today as well, so cute that I couldn't help but crack a smile. However, noticing I wasn't my usual self, she quickly asked, "Dad, what's wrong? Did something bad happen at work?" So I said, "No, it's nothing. Go ahead and take your bath first," ushering Mariah out of the living room. Of course, that was to talk about what happened at work. After changing out of my suit in silence, I'd finally gathered my courage and asked, "Hey, before I say what I'm about to say, promise me you won't leave me." Emma laughed and said, "What are you talking about? There's no way I'd leaving you." "What happened?" "Something at work," in a calm tone. So, I felt a bit relieved and said, "Well, I got fired." Emma's face turned pale instantly. And no wonder. Emma had quit her job right after starting to take care of the kids in childbirth, and the idea of her supporting the family instead of me was simply unthinkable. Emma's usually calm demeanor vanished, and she began to press me on why it had happened. In a panic, I said, but, I managed to avoid being fired after pleading my case multiple times, and ended up being transferred to a remote site instead. So, could you come with me, maybe? Then she exploded. "What are you saying? You know Mariah has made so many friends here, don't you? She's only 8 years old. It's cruel to make her change schools when she's so happy at her current one. And I've just started to feel at home here. And now, to move to nowhere in Ohio. That's just too much. Sorry for you, but can you go alone?" Emma was visibly angry. Family warmth seems like an illusion. Though I was initially shocked by her words, I realized she was right and quietly said, "I understand. That makes sense. I was inconsiderate. Sorry. I'll go there alone." And so, I tearfully went alone to the most renowned factory in Ohio, known as the worst within Company B's affiliates. "Nice to meet you. You must be Ethan, the one who came from the headquarters. We're short-handed here, so having a capable young man like you come is a big help. Thank you for coming to such a rural area." Although I was surprised by the oldness of the factory I saw upon arriving in Ohio, I could tell right away that both the plant manager and the secretary general were good people. Upon the secretary general said that, everyone in the office welcomed me with warm smiles. Then, I was taught the office work, but honestly, it was much simpler than anything I had done before. The main tasks at the factory office included ordering raw materials, managing inventory data entry, creating documents, and preparing for meetings. All of these were tasks I had been given as a newbie, and the factory work itself seemed monotonous, almost disheartening. The drastic difference from the work I had been doing made me somewhat sad. Just a little while ago, I was a candidate for section chief at this age, thinking I might even make it to director eventually, but now I felt like I was back at the start. Slowly realizing that I had been demoted, I sank into deep despair. However, as I learned the ropes and carried out my tasks, I managed to get through half a day's work. "All right, time for the much-awaited lunch," said the Secretary General and the others, laughing as I followed them to the employee cafeteria. Then, from the opposite direction, a group of female employees and part-time workers around my age walked by. It's not a man's instinct, I guess, but despite being married, I couldn't help but look to see if there were any cute ones among the female staff. Shouldn't be doing this. Emma is waiting for me, I thought, yet I found myself staring at them. The one who talked to me was unmistakably a veteran lady. "Hey, staring at me like that. Do you think I'm so beautiful?" "Oh, you're making me blush," said Sophia, the most veteran employee at the factory, with a hearty laugh. When I smoothly responded, "Yes, you are so beautiful that I was mesmerized," she chuckled and said, "What's that? You're an honest one, huh? Oh, I thought I saw a new face. Are you the guy who was supposed to come from the headquarters? What's your name?" After I told her my name, Sophia grinned and said, "Our factory is full of beauties, isn't it? But they're all married, including me." "Too bad for you," she teasingly said, making me protest. "Hey, that's not it." Somehow, Sophia and I quickly hit it off. Somehow, I've always been good at conversing with people around my parents' age, regardless of gender. Maybe because I'm straightforward and tend to react too much when teased, making me an easy target for banter. And true to form, I quickly became friends with Sophia in that same manner. Sophia is turning 60 this year, but her voice felt stronger than her age. Having worked at this factory for many years, she was rehired after reaching retirement age. Led by Sophia, I found myself formally greeting everyone in the cafeteria once again. "Starting today, I'll be working at this factory. My name is Ethan. I may cause you a lot of trouble until I get used to everything here, but I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. Come on, let's skip the formalities and go pick something from the lunch menu. And you might find things a bit confusing at first, but everyone here is really nice. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or Davis. We're all here for you." That's what Sophia kindly told me. And then, every time Sophia saw me, she'd say things like, "The vegetables were plentiful today, huh? Or was the road okay when you came in today? Oh, Ethan, you're coming from the opposite direction. You have a daughter. I have a son. Boy, was he a handful. Oh, right. What were you like during your teenage years, Ethan? How many people have you dated?" It was just so typical of an aunt to ask, and I couldn't help but naturally smile. When I mentioned I only had my wife in the past, Sophia widened her eyes and said, "Oh, how pure-hearted. So, you're not used to women. That explains why you were staring so intently at first." She teased me again. But honestly, this kind of light-hearted interaction felt more comfortable than being formally and gently treated. "Come on, stop it. Doesn't everyone watch new people closely at first?" I retorted, getting all worked up, which only encouraged Sophia to tease me more. Also, Sophia was bright and seemed to enjoy talking with all the employees, making her very popular around the factory. However, I can forget Sophia sadly mentioning that because of the poor pay and the abundance of overtime, along with the monotony of the work, many people end up leaving the factory. But the people here, starting with Sophia, were all so nice that I found myself enjoying work more than I expected. One day, while sweating away as usual in the factory, I heard a familiar voice. "Hey, you are still here." What? I was surprised since I had never gone on an inspection before due to being too busy. It was immediately clear that Director Johnson had brought a junior employee to visit this factory where I was working. The director looked at me with a grin, and the junior looked at me as if he were looking at something pitiful. Seeing that gaze, I feel helpless anger welling up. Seeing my face, Director Johnson gleefully said, "Someone as clueless as you fits right in at a backwater factory like this. How could they entrust such important tasks to someone who makes such big mistakes? I just can't understand it. Everyone must have been fooled by her serious aura. But you, making such a mess, you might as well get ready to bury your bones here," he declared loudly. "Hey, Director Johnson." The junior tried to stop him, but couldn't speak forcefully. "But I wasn't just going to take it." "No, you were the one who actually did that project, weren't you? And then you smoothly talked your way out of it with the president. You think you can tell such a sly lie just because you want to go back to headquarters? You really are." The junior next to him widened his eyes in surprise when the director was about to continue to say. Sophia was approaching with an expression I had never seen before, striding determinedly towards us. Then, "Hey, what's this?" Sophia exclaimed. "Just sitting there quietly while you hurl one unfair accusation after another at Ethan. Do you even realize what you're doing?" I had honestly told Sophia the reason I was demoted. So, hearing the exchange with the director, she couldn't stand it due to her strong sense of justice and felt compelled to say something. Then, she suddenly took off her mask that covered her head like protective gear. The director's face drained of color, turning to one of despair. "Chairman, why are you here?" Realizing Sophia's true identity, the director became flustered, starting to sweat profusely. But I was still in shock, unable to grasp this unexpected turn of events, when Sophia, with her eyes narrowed, began to speak. "Really, I thought we just had an inspection from headquarters, but to come here and further belittle an employee you forced to resign. And to think the former president, me, would be here and show your true colors, it's just appalling. You've been acting as you please since I left the president's position. I've been getting all sorts of stories about you from people at headquarters, but since they were all from competent colleagues of yours, I thought maybe it was all to pull you down. So, I was having it further investigated. Yes, you too. And what I heard was just terrible. You've changed so much from the Director Johnson I knew when I was at headquarters. I was just thinking it was about time to do something when this happened. No matter how well you can act and get the job done, entrusting someone like you with the position of director was a mistake. We'll have to reconsider your situation. But this mistake was truly his doing. I've been working with this guy for a while now. He always reports his mistakes without lying. Plus, he never pretends to know things he doesn't and always asks questions diligently. There's no way he would tell such a lie." Being yelled at like that, Director Johnson said, I am sorry, but this story is true," and then fled as if running away. Really, such a stubborn man. As I hastily apologized to Sophia, saying, "I'm terribly sorry. I had no idea you were the chairwoman. I've been incredibly rude until now." Sophia laughed and forgave me, saying, "Haha, well, that's understandable. I kept it low-key at the factory, just going by Sophia, so you don't need to apologize." The next day, Sophia called an emergency board meeting. Although she had passed the president's position to her son, she had retained her title as chairwoman at the headquarters, preserving her power to quickly convene meetings and act as chairperson when necessary. The board meeting discussed the cover-ups and blame shifting by Director Johnson and the company's practice of intentionally overlooking these issues for the sake of profit, resulting in a decision on the treatment of Director Johnson and others. It was also revealed that Director Johnson had continuously flattered the president before becoming director, engaging in various misconducts together, which was the only reason he had become director. This was kept secret by the president and the board members to ensure only they benefited. threatening to fire any employee who tried to expose this, which is why reports had not been coming in. Sophia then stripped the executives of their roles as president and director, declaring she would take over as president of the company due to their behavior. However, keeping the former presidents and directors as regular employees was deemed unreliable, and ultimately, they were all fired, and those who had silently consented were completely replaced. This news spread quickly throughout the factory. "Good for you," was the common sentiment among the employees, making me feel grateful to have been dispatched to this factory. Of course, the plant managers were aware of Sophia, yet they kept silent, understanding Sophia's desire to hear the honest voices of the employees and expose the wrongdoing. Hearing that Sophia was returning as president made me a bit sad. The lady I could easily talk to about anything would now be less approachable. However, I also knew that this change would significantly improve the once toxic work environment of the company. That thought alone made me realize it was for the better. For a while, I continued to work in the busy factory as usual, but soon after, I was called to the headquarters by Sophia. There, it was decided that I would officially return to the headquarters. When I told my wife that I was going to return to the headquarters, she was delighted, just as I had expected. I've heard that among the employees who were demoted because of the directors, some had their salaries significantly cut or were asked to relocate, leading to their spouses giving up on them. Though Emma didn't mention divorce when I first brought up my demotion, she was quite upset and angry. Seeing her like that, I realized that such unexpected setbacks really reveal the true strength of a marriage. However, now that the children are older, it will cost more money. At a time like this, if they were told that their salary would be reduced or that they would be transferred to another school, it would be natural for them to be distraught and unable to remain calm. That's why I felt relieved that Emma and I didn't end up divorcing, and I chose to do my best alone in a distant place. Would I have been able to recover if I had been faced with divorce just for financial reasons? If I had lost my children and been left alone at this age, would I have been able to work as lively as I do now? Thinking about it, I felt lucky, despite once facing injustice. There's always unexpected help around if you keep an eye out for the good in your surroundings. Even if I had continued working at the factory, I believe I would have been happy working in a friendly environment without the director. And without Sophia, the misdeeds would not have been exposed this time. I am determined to contribute all I can to the company managed by Sophia, my benefactor. That was my strong resolve.